Hi there, this is the video introduction for Chapter 7. Chapter 7 is titled Lesson Planning for Active Learning, and this is the chapter where we really make that transition from thinking about the general larger framework for your course, kind of those big components like the outcomes that you're striving for, or the summative assessments that you're having students work toward, to where we really start to hone in on the nitty-gritty and the day-to-day teaching for the course. And so this is where we start thinking about lessons and what am I going to do in my class each day, each week, as students build toward those summative assessments. And as we're making these plans, as we're planning our day-to-day lessons, we really want to be thinking about a couple of things. First of all, we want students to be doing the work, as Terry Doyle said. We don't want to be doing the brunt of work in class. We want to be creating situations that allow students to tap in to that practice during class. The person who does the work does the learning, as Terry Doyle said. And so we want to be creating those experiences for students. The other thing we want to keep in mind is that we're not creating random experiences for students to do the work in class. We're making very intentional decisions about what kinds of things students are working on in class that will give them access to the content, allow them to make connections to that content, and give them an opportunity to really practice the skills associated with that content that they're going to be measured on later on those summative assessments. So we're giving them a chance to really grow and learn during class while we're there to help them. We start this chapter talking about teachable moments, and we also bring up intrinsic motivation. And the reason for that is because in the knowledge transmission paradigm, these aren't things that maybe we can attend to very well as teachers. It's kind of like we're giving students the information and they can either teach themselves with it or not. They're either motivated or not. And so it's very different in the active learning paradigm, because we can really capitalize on the teachable moments that come out of the work that students are doing in our class. We can really look for ways to foster intrinsic motivation, either by allowing students to make genuine connections to what we're doing, or by building in practices that allow students to really see their own growth and feel the intrinsic motivation that comes when we as learners see ourselves growing. In this chapter, we also return to the idea of making connections and practicing. We've talked about this a lot in previous chapters, but it makes sense to bring it up again because it's in those day-to-day lessons where you're going to create those opportunities for students to make connections and where they get to practice things. And so this is the level of course design where that's going to be sort of concretized. And then the other thing that we do in this chapter that we provide is a series of ideas. I think there are 11 in total of active learning activities, ideas around active learning, things that we have tried that we know reflect the science of learning and that really attend to all of those ways of learning that we talked about earlier, especially in Chapter 2. We only give you 11. There are many more out there that you can find on your own. We've given you some resources at the end of this chapter that you can explore outside of our workbook and find that. And so, we'll ask you at the end of this workbook or at the end of this chapter to really reflect on some of these ideas and to think about your own discipline and your own class and imagine, if I was going to select a couple of these ideas and use them with my students to foster active learning, what would they be? Which ones make the most sense for you? So even though this is Chapter 7 and it appears to be the last chapter, we actually have a pretty robust appendix that follows this chapter. And the appendix is really there to provide you with some structures like templates that are going to help you with the day-to-day lesson planning. So taking the ideas from this chapter and then using some of the tools from the appendix to actually get building with your course redesign. The templates all attend to the science of learning, and they're all things that would work really well for an active learning classroom. Okay, thank you.